in the show.
Oh, no, we're live.
Yeah, we're live now.
There we go.
Okay, good.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Christmas tasting. Hope you all had a nice Christmas. And look forward to tasting through some of our expressions from 2022 with you and talking about what we've got coming up next year.
Yeah, no, great. Well, look, thanks for joining. And reiterate, I hope you've all had a great Christmas with your family and friends, and that you also have a wonderful new year. And we look forward to a great 2023, and everybody has a great time. So I thought I'd start off by just giving a recap on 2022 and what's been going on at the distillery. We've had another very busy year. We're in a place with sales that we didn't expect to be, which is a great place to be, really, for us. Never imagined it when I started the distillery all the way back in 2005. We had our 17th birthday on the 14th of December. That was the first cask we filled on the 14th of December, 2005. It doesn't seem all that long ago. And it's a memory that will be etched with me forever and a day as a very special day when we ran the stills for the first time and collected spirit. So 2022, I think we produced another 125,000 litres of alcohol. That was always the intention. We had the new set of stills, so we had 2 sets of stills and another 7 washbacks, and we had a good year in production and just under 600,000 litres of alcohol. And the previous year was 475, so quite a big increase, but it's something that we needed to do. Because obviously we're very keen to keep on growing Kilchoman. As long as people's enjoying it, we want to produce it. And I think every distillery will agree with me when I say that you never get sales and production right at any stage, just simply because it's so difficult to predict what's going to happen down the line 5, 10, 15 years. And certainly we need to do a bit of catching up with production, and that's what we're intending to do. And I think 2022 also marked the first year after COVID that we had a full year in the new visitor centre, which was fantastic to welcome everyone back to the distillery and showcase our new visitor centre, which we actually opened in March late February 2020, and of course then lockdown happened in March. And we then sort of limped through until 2022 when we were allowed to open up fully. And it's great to see so many people come and visit us from around the world. And it was our busiest year ever in the visitor centre. It's a great venue now, and Kathy, my wife, and her sister had a lot to do with the design and layout of it. And it's a fantastic place. So if you haven't visited, do come and see us. Next year, it'd be great to show it to you, and you get a wonderful welcome from our visitor centre team who've done a fantastic job. In bottling, we've sent another 120,000 bottles around the world this year than we did the previous year, so that's a big increase. That shows you why we need to produce a bit more and get the balance right in our maturing stock. We also grew a bit more barley, malted a bit more, and all in all, we've now got over 14,000 casks maturing in the warehouses. We've just completed and just started filling warehouse 5, which is now fully racked, and we have plans now to produce, put a new warehouse up every 18 months. Just simply because of the direction we're going in production, and depending on how sales move forward, you've got to have plenty of warehousing.
You've got a good sales team, so it should be no problem.
I always get told I've got a good sales team, seeing as I've been sacked from that team. But yeah, I know. Look, it's fantastic to see where we've gone, and we've had lots of other things going on at the distillery. A drainage program to bring more of our fields around the distillery on the farm into barley production. And we hope next year, the year after next, once we've completed the drainage program, that we're producing well over 300 tonnes of barley a year. And at the moment, it's only about 150 or so. But if we can produce a bit more, then we have more of our flagship expression, 100% Islay, which is really what we talk about a lot, being a farm distillery and producing our own barley and taking it right the way through the production process. So we're going to try and produce as much as we can moving forward. We're extending the malt floor so that we can process more of our own, and that's important to us.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. No, I mean, you just carry on. I'll just sit here. No, it's. I mean, 2022. It's remarkable. I think we put a photo up on social media which showed a picture from the back of the distillery from 2005 and then in the present day, and it's quite remarkable the changes that are happening and the changes that are happening year on year. The new warehouses, being able to grow more barley. So it's all very exciting. And it's great that we've got so many of you tuning in tonight. I mean, we've got people all the way from around the UK through Europe over to Texas in America as well. But we've got to say happy birthday to Hayley Pratt's husband, who she bought him a tasting pack for his birthday. So hopefully you enjoy this evening. Wish you a very happy birthday. But we should probably taste some whiskey.
Yes.
At some juncture.
Yeah.
We're going to start with the Machir Bay, then go to Loch Gorm, Calvados finish, and then the club release to end. And if you've got any questions, do send them in, because Catherine is going to be sending them to me, so we can try and answer as many as we can as we go through the evening. But we'll start with Machir Bay, which takes us back almost to, well, it was launched in 2012, I suppose. So some of our sort of the original expressions that we put out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the first few years when we launched in 2009, we put out very limited releases, seasonal releases, we call them, the winter, summer, autumn, and spring releases that we did. And I think, I always take note of what consumers are saying, and that I think after 2 or 3 years of that, they were looking for more regular releases and if you want to build a brand, you need a regular release that's always available on the shelf. So we launched Machir Bay. As you all know, those who visited the distillery will know that Machir Bay, that wonderful 1.5-mile stretch of beach just to the west of the distillery, it's one of the most visited beaches on Islay, and we thought it was very apt to call our first regular release core expression Machir Bay. And it's been very consistent since we launched it. It's relatively young, 4, 5, 6 years of age. Bourbon cask maturation mainly, about 90%, and 10% Oloroso sherry butts, and that just gives it a bit more weight and a bit more sort of depth of colour. But it's very consistent. It's young, it's youthful, it's vibrant, and when I nose this, I always get the typical Kilchoman characteristics, that lemon and citrus note. If you have tasted our new make, that comes through. It's quite creamy and sweet and clean. Once you mature it in mainly bourbon barrels, you get a lot of that lemon and citrus note coming through when they're relatively young. And some of you would have tasted some of our older releases of bourbon cask maturation, and suddenly you get more of that cask influence coming through, and softer and filling out, and a lot more depth of caramel, butterscotch, and sort of notes like that coming through. But at this age, it just has this youthful vibrancy about it that I love, and it really showcases the Kilchoman spirit in a really great way.
And did you use predominantly bourbon cask because you wanted to allow our spirit to be the sort of focal point?
I think definitely, and I think my mentor was Jim Swan, as everybody knows, and he was of the opinion that our spirit character. He was with me when it first ran off the stills, and his view was very much, this will do really well in bourbon barrels and also sherry casks, and that's shown through in the releases that we've done so far. We do tend to fill mainly bourbon barrels. Probably now about 60%, I would say, is bourbon, either first fill or refill. We are filling a few more refills now, because over the years we've realised that some of the refills that have only been the first fill that have only been used for 4 or 5 years, they have a huge amount of life left in them. And when we fill them again, and 4 or 5 years later, they're really not that far behind the first fills. So we've been filling more of our casks a second time, which has helped actually in terms of the cask selection. Those of you know, it's a challenging time for everybody around the world in running businesses, getting hold of raw materials, and we're no different from anybody else. And there's been a huge issue with casks, and especially the bourbon barrels, and so it's caused a bit of an issue for us. No, we never ran out, but we've now switched from Buffalo Trace, who ended our contract with them sort of late in last year, and we're moving our first fill bourbon barrels to a distillery called Breckenridge up in Colorado, and we hope to take delivery of the first container in sort of March time, and it'd be interesting to see how those compare. But I'm sure they'll be very, very good. Breckenridge has got a wonderful reputation, and we're looking forward to working with them in the future.
But I suppose even though we're buying those casks now, they're not going to come into effect for a number of years, which will be so. All the casks we fill at the moment are still the Buffalo Trace, and also the Machir Bay at 50 ppm, Port Ellen malted barley. It's amazingly fresh,
Yeah, this isn't 50 ppm.
ppm.
Sorry,
Yeah,
50 not 50%. Yes, I mean, and not it doesn't have any alcohol burn. It's got a sweetness and a character of all of its own, even at this relatively young age. And I think that's what surprises people when they try Machir Bay. We have Machir Bay, and of course we have Saneg as a regular release, which is main sherry cask matured, to sit alongside Machir Bay. And they're very different in character. And this is why I talk about cask influence and how much influence cask has on the end product that you end up enjoying in the glass.
And I suppose as a relatively young distillery, we have the luxury of being able to show how important the cask is rather than talk about huge differences in age. We show how important the maturation is, and also knowing where you get your cask from. Yeah, having a relationship with the cask supplier or the cooperage or the bodega is key as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's what Jim Swan banged home to me very early on, that don't cut any corners in your cask selection and where you purchase them from. You get more consistency if you buy them from one source, and that is showcased. Look, you get very good casks from cooperages around the world, but getting them from one distillery direct is always something that has stood us in good stead, and will continue to do that.
One question that's come in here already from Christopher Malloy. What's going with Port Ellen maltings? Have you been approached by other distilleries to provide peated malt for their operations?
Well, we couldn't possibly supply anybody else apart from ourselves without the maltings we have for our own barley that we grow at the distillery. It's a relatively small maltings. There are issues at Port Ellen. I think it's well known that Port Ellen won't be supplying any third-party distilleries moving forward. 2023 is the last year that they're providing any, and it's reducing its quantity that they're supplying is on allocation to third-party distilleries. And then we're having to consider what we do moving forward, and we're seriously considering and we're looking into it, and we're actually putting in for planning for our own commercial maltings, because I think what is important to us is to be in charge of our own destiny, and for us using Isla Peat, it's something that's hugely important to our operation. Isla Peat does have a different characteristics, also West Coast distilleries, and we want to make sure that we maintain that character in our spirit moving forward. So we're seriously having to consider that. It'll take a year or two to have it up and running, but we're talking about a commercial maltings which is automated, which will sit alongside our own malting operation that is all done by hand, floor maltings and kiln, and moving to something more automated. And we've already had quotes and looked at what's available, and we'll see where we go. But there's other discussions going on amongst the other distilleries about what the future holds and what we do as an island community of distilleries.
Yeah, it's a not ideal moment.
No, I mean, because as everybody knows, trying to run a company, distillery on Isla is becoming more difficult, more challenging, simply because infrastructure, ferries, all these things are impacting on how you operate, and so you have to be nimble and flexible and come up with ideas to get around the issues that we've got and we'll have for the next few years, and that's why we're looking at all other ways of keeping going in the way we have, because we, as everybody knows, we bottle everything on island, so we bring all our dry goods onto the island and then send our finished whiskey off the island, and we rely solely on the ferry operation, and that's not always as efficient and as we'd like it to be. But we work closely with the local haulage company, and they do an amazing job in making sure that our dry goods get onto the island, and we get all our finished whiskey off the island. And for now, we haven't had an issue, but we're keeping a very close eye on it.
But yeah, we'll keep the options open as far as bolted barley for 2023 as well. But it's tricky to get hold of the surplus that we will.
We're getting hold of it. We will manage to get what we require. So even though we're going up production, we've secured barley and malt moving forward, and we're looking at our options in the future to make sure that we can cope moving forward. But peated malt is something that has become hugely popular in Scotland for peated malt, and it's a bit of a challenge if you want to get what you need for your maltings. But we've secured our malt, and so we're okay. But we're looking at our options moving forward.
Bert Hardy's asking if you ever employ a full-time cooper.
We don't think we need to at this stage. I think we buy from some very reputable companies who supply us with very, very good high quality casks, and we very rarely have a problem with any of them that turn up at the distillery. Normally the problem is if it falls out the back of a lorry. It's not a great thing, but that's normally our fault if that happens. So no, we don't think that we'll needing to employ a cooper at this stage. And as long as we buy all our casks direct from one distillery in America and one in Spain, and then we work with various cooperages in Europe to supply our experimental cask types.
Should we move on to Loch Gorm?
Yeah.
Loch Gorm, for those of you who aren't aware, Loch Gorm is an annual release. Always matured in Oloroso sherry butts, and is fully matured in the Oloroso sherry butt, and varies on, I suppose, the vintages that we put in it each year. And I suppose the question would be, do you try and sort of match the previous year, or are you trying to bring a different characteristic out each year?
I'm trying to change them each year and not keep them the same. And I think those who've been buying Loch Gorm since we released it, and I'm now going to forget when we first released it. I think it was about 2014.
Someone will tell us.
Someone will tell us that I tried to just sort of switch it up a bit in terms of style and character. But I think what intrigues me is and the challenge is working with peated malt and peated whiskey and sherry casks. Our peated malt that we use for Loch Gorm is 50 ppm, between 45 and 55 parts per million of phenols, and therefore there's a bit more of a challenge to get that to balance with the cask influence and the spirit character, the whiskey character. So we've switched it up a bit. We're now, I think, with the 2022 release back in April. It was a combination of 9-year-old down to.
Do you want me to list that?
Because there was 2007 cars, 2008 cars, 2009, 11, 12, and 13.
You can read,
and I can read that. And the majority of the release obviously was the 13, 12, and 13, just because we have more of those cars. But I always like to put in some of the older cars into the vatting, just bring a little bit more depth, a bit more character to the release. So it's more challenging working with sherry casks, Oloroso sherry casks, and peated whiskey, but I think it works really well. And they do differ. All the casks that Robin and I taste before we finalise our plans for the release are all very different, and we just have to get the ones that work well together. It takes a bit of time. It's great that we've now got a lab that we can work in, Robin and I. We put on our white coats, go in there. And no, I'm joking. And that we can lay out all the samples in the lab that we've got, this room that we've got now, attached to the offices, where we can actually put out all the samples and go through various different vattings to see which one works well. But this to me, is not over sherried. It's I think it's very well balanced in terms of the character of Kilchoman spirit and the and as soon as on the nose, for me, I get more smoke and peaty sort of salty character coming through. It's matured in Oloroso sherry, I believe. The colour isn't particularly dark, which would say that the casks we used weren't that active. We've had more active casks that we've used in previous Loch Gorms.
From memory, some of the refills, what I always like when the refills that we use that probably been used for the Machir Bay or something similar like that, have still got a lot of life in them, but they just allow, especially if they're slightly older, allow the Kilchoman characteristic to really shine forward without the big characteristic of the Oloroso sherry taking over. But I think you always, in discussions and tastings you have with people, either they want a little bit more sherry influence or not enough sherry, and it's always one of those ones which, when people taste it, it'll either hit the spot for them. But I think it's important that the Kilchoman shines through, and the refills really do help that for my mind.
I mean, I think in previously we've done a real sherry bomb, as I call them, for Loch Gorm, and a lot of people have enjoyed those. But for my own personal taste, and that's not what this is about. It's about me doing different battings to bring out different characteristics. For my mind, this is just got a balance that I like about the Kilchoman character shining through, but in the sherry influence still being there. And then, of course, you can change it up and use more active casks, like Saneg, which has more active casks. They're hogsheads, so they give more of a big hit of sherry influence at an earlier age. And people love that as well. So, there's something out there for everybody, hopefully.
Nice complexity and nice long, a very heavy, creamy style to it as well.
Yeah.
And 46%, it's just, Machir Bay and Saneg. Sorry, Machir Bay and Loch Gorm that we tasted, they're both at 46%. Both natural colour, non-chill filtered. It just works really, really well. And one of the questions that's come in here, now I've just locked myself out of the phone. All the core expressions, is the plan to increase the age of those, or is this a sort of something that we have to slowly manage as your sales team are just doing such a good job?
I think when I first started, I thought, wouldn't it be great? Machir Bay would start off at 3 years of age, and the first release we ever did in 2009 was that. It was 3 years of age, and the idea was really just to increase the age profile as we move forward. But it hasn't moved a lot. It's got to 4, 5, and a bit of 6, and in fact, we've done some 7-year-old in that batting, and I think actually we put a bit of 8-year-old at some point. So we do bring a few more older casks into the vatting, but at this stage it's still relatively young with the average casks we use, and it won't change for the next 3-4 years, just simply because of the profile of our stock and what we need to maintain.
But I suppose when it comes to the annual releases and the more limited releases, that's when we can use some of the older casks. But we've got to remember that back in 2007, 8, 9, we were producing under 100,000 litres until 2009, weren't we? There's not a.
In 2005, we filled 7 casks.
Yeah.
In 2006, we produced 50,000 litres of alcohol. In 2007, it was about 65, and then ever since then, we've just increased it slowly until this year we've produced over 600. So it's quite a big step over those years, and we never imagined that we would need to be producing that level. And it was always my intention, 100,000 litres, that seems sensible enough. It will be one of the smallest distilleries. In those days, Edredar was always the smallest distillery in terms of production. But we've gone from there just because I think people have enjoyed what we've put out there, and I'm delighted that people are enjoying our whiskies.
Joshua Hassan is tuned in, and he's asked if you consider doing a fully bourbon cask matured. Something we've done in the past, and it's something that we have talked about, doing exclusively bourbon to compare to the likes of the Loch Gorm.
Well, we did actually, and Joshua will know,
if you've been concentrating.
He's clearly, been doing a fantastic job in the States for us. We did the vintage range, which was a 2006, 7, 8, 9, even a 10, I think.
Latterly, they did have a little bit of sherry in them.
The first ones were just purely bourbons. Good point, Joshua. I mean, it's something that we will do. I think And I'm sure, I mean, Josh will be one person who's tried some of our older single casks, bourbon single casks, and they're fantastic. You know, the 10, 12, 14-year-old single casks that we've released have been amazing. So yes, over time, I would love to do a fully mature bourbon release, because I think it showcases Kilchoman in a way that I love. You know, there's no hiding place in bourbon, and it just has this wonderful character and balance.
I suppose the other thing to consider is also, now we're producing 600,000 litres. That all goes, we're keeping the whole lot. There's none going to independent bottlers. We're not selling any fillings, any bulk spirit. So it's probably quite remarkable back from when you started in 2005 to think that we'd be producing 17 years' time over 600,000 litres.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look, no, it was never my intention or my...
You probably wanted to retire, did you?
I think having my three sons in the business has helped drive me forward. And those who visited the distillery back in the early days of 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, if you come back now, you'll just see a remarkable change with the new buildings and new. You know, we had an original malt floor and kiln, 2-ton malt floor and kiln. We've now got a 4-ton malt floor and kiln, and now we're going to an 8-ton malt floor and kiln. Warehousing is carried on because we mature everything on site. 14,000 casks now maturing on site. It was always my intention to do that, and then it was always my intention to bottle it on site, simply because I just wanted to be in charge of everything that we did. And you lose a certain amount of control if you use a third-party bottling company. So, you know, it's something we've always wanted to do, and hopefully it means that we can get our orders out around the world a bit quicker maybe than if we subcontracted it out. And
it meant during COVID that we were able to continue to put orders out there, which was key as well. And you know, it means that now we've gone, I think, over 50 people now working at the distillery.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just 5 of us.
Yeah,
5 of us in 2005, 6. And we've gone from there to the number that we've got now, which is unbelievable in terms of employment on the island. I think we're probably the 3rd biggest employer on the island. And it's great that we've had that many people that are working for us. We have obviously the sales and marketing are now based in Edinburgh. And we have a few more people that have joined us. And that team's expanded a bit, but we've also expanded the number of people who work in production, because of the warehousing is now a key part of what we do. And we're now filling over 100 casks a week, equivalent bourbon barrels a week, which needs a bit of care and attention to get them stowed away. And obviously the malt floor and kiln is ongoing throughout the year. And so Robin has a team of about 14 people under him in production. And then we have about 12 in bottling. And in the season in the visitor centre, we have a team of about 12, 14 there. And we have a team in admin who look after everything that goes on. You know, we have about 5 people there. And keep me in check, yeah, which is very important.
One of the questions that's come in was from Benjamin Townsend, who's asked, tequila single cask, one of my favourites. Any plans for more experimental releases from spirits from around the world?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a program that I really enjoy, experimenting with different cask types, and it's something that we'll continue to do when I get the chance to purchase some different cask types. Mainly fortified wines tend to work better. You know, there's slightly higher alcohol strength, around the sort of 18-19% to 23-24%. They tend to just have a bit more backbone and structure that give our spirit that's maturing in red wine, white wine, just a bit more difficult to work with. But yeah, we'll continue that. Tequila and mezcal did work incredibly well. You're going to try the Calvados cask finish next, and that was something that we believe has worked really well. Cognac, Armagnac, Masala, Pinot de Charente, you know, rum, and what else have we got? Port. Yeah, we can't call it that.
Well, we can't call it that,
but we have bought some champagne casks, and we're seeing how those come through and what sort of different characteristics come through from our spirit character. I think I bang on about it all the time, but at the end of the day, I believe all the production processes play their part in the style of spirit that you produce, and different yeast varieties and different cut points and different barley varieties, because we've experimented with those in the fields around the distillery. 2 different barley varieties in the same field, and then put those through the production and at the spirit safe. When you taste them alongside each other, there is a difference. But at the end of the day, the cask has the biggest influence, and what you mature your spirit in. And I always will say that is the case. And I think that showcases the different releases that we've done from different experimental casks that we've used, either as a finish or a full maturation. It's a completely different animal. And I think one of the releases that we did recently, actually, the Madeira cask matured, was a fantastic example of something that works incredibly well. And we've tended to not try and mix too many different cask types in the same vatting. We've tended to try and we've stuck with bourbon and sherry, and then we've done these experimental cask types either as full maturation or as finishes. In other words, bourbon barrel maturation for 8, 9, 10 years, and then finish them in a different cask type for maybe a year or longer to give it different characteristics. And the next one you're going to try is something that's very different. Was this a distillery exclusive?
Yeah, distillery exclusive. So for that, we do shop exclusive, distillery exclusive, and this is a bottling that's only available at the distillery in the shop. And I suppose it gives you a chance to delve into things that you find interesting in the warehouse, or you find a cask that you particularly like, or there's something new that you want to try. And this was 2011 refill bourbons that you then finished for just under a year in the Calvados cask.
Yeah, and the double maturation is over. So these were sort of, I think they were 250 or 300 litre casks, and so we put 2 bourbons into each. So and finished them for about a year. Yeah, 11 months.
11 months.
And I think I always say with the Calvados casks that we've used in the past, you get this sort of green apple character that comes through. So it's a light and fresh character coming through. To just change it up from just straight bourbon, it just brings a different light, fruity, green apple character is my signature characteristic. And this is what
54.5%, which you wouldn't really. And I suppose the amazing thing when you taste Kilchoman at cask strength, for those of you who tasted our Machir Bay at cask strength that we did latterly this year, I always find our whiskies at cask strength, it's just phenomenal. The sort of depth of flavour, almost the sort of vibrancy and the freshness of them, and the Calvados really does help bring that out.
I think what we're quite fortunate is the spirit is quite sweet and floral anyway. So when we put out these sort of full strength releases, cask strength releases, they're very approachable even at the full strength. But I think with this, I find a few drops of water just brings out the character, allows you to taste it behind the alcohol.
Even at cask strength, I just had a mouthful there, and I always, for some reason, I always taste it without water, and then sometimes add water if I need. And it's just, I get loads of sweetness, that the apples coming through, and don't get a huge amount of the peat coming out on the palate for me.
I think it's really interesting because these first 3 that we tasted are all from the same spirit character, the Port Ellen malt, with the higher peating level, and it just shows how different the result is when it gets bottled.
No, and sort of leads on to a few people have been asking for. Can they tell them anything about 2023 releases?
Yeah.
Are you willing to share?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing a lot of work on 2023 and what we're going to release as our limited releases. I mean, the 2 core limited releases will continue. So Loch Gorm will be released in the spring. But alongside that, we're releasing...
Let's see if he remembers now.
A cognac matured and the Fino sherry matured. And again, we're releasing 3 limited releases in the spring rather than the 2 that we normally do. Lots of that to do with these were ready, and I believe they needed to be put out there. Now you're going to have to remind me, but the Fino I think is 2016 cask, so relatively, so we're talking about 5 years of age, I think. and the cognac's a little bit older, maybe 7 or 8 years of age. But they're two very different animals. But I think I'd be very interested to hear people's reactions. I think these limited releases that we do in experimental casks are great fun, and I think what I'm trying to do is just showcase Kilchoman in a different light to the tried and tested sherry and bourbon we know works so well, because some of these other cask types, you could argue, work equally as well with different characteristics. But I think that the thing is, you find a cask type that works really well and say, right, let's just fill more of those. I think when you go back and buy another batch of these casks, then the consistency isn't always there. And you can't tend to get hold of lots and lots of these casks on a regular basis and be sure that they're all going to perform in the same way. So, I tend to try and buy sort of 50 or 100 casks from a cooperage that I work with, and see how those work. And then I'll go back in a couple of years' time and buy some more if they work particularly well. And tequila and mezcal are examples of some casks that have worked well, and we're getting more of those in at the beginning of 2023. So those are the Fino and the cognac will be released in the spring, alongside Loch Gorm, and the dates and release dates will be announced in February time, probably. And then, of course, we'll do the 100% Isla to coincide with the barley harvest in September, and then we'll have another release after that. And small batches is something we've pioneered and done quite well with, we'll continue that journey. And single cask is something that we do ourselves. We don't sell any of our casks to independent bottlers. We like to look after those and sell those to our customers around the world, either as to a shop or
I think they
work really well, and it allows us to maybe occasionally give older casks to some of our key distributors, which people won't have seen a lot of. So we have released, I think, a 14-year-old.
Yeah, and then we have a handful of the older casks do get released to either the top markets or a particularly special customer or for a suitable time. And it's important for us to do that as well. But at the same time, we need to keep some of them back, because it's quite nice to see how they develop. But as people always say, what's the plan with? I suppose we're filling these refills and second fills. Those are the ones that we push out for the longer maturations potentially, and the fresh bourbons and sherries will probably hit a point where.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so when we obviously sold a few private casks in 2005, 6, and 7, and a few of those have been bottled by private individuals. And when I go to taste those, they're fantastic. If the fresh and the refill just need a bit longer. So refill, I tasted a few refill casks just before Christmas, and I would say they need another year or two. But I've always of the opinion that when a cask is ready to go, it's ready to go. You don't really need to keep it in the warehouse just for the hell of it. I'm a great believer that when it's ready to bottle, it should be bottled, because it's better to bottle something at its peak rather than going over its peak and getting too much cask influence, which at the end of the day doesn't mean it's going to be a better whiskey.
And I suppose when it comes to these experimental casks, are you now increasing the number of casks you bought? Because I know that, for example, STR casks, you started with I think it was it 30 or maybe slightly, and now are you buying larger numbers of these casks, or are you sort of sticking to the smaller amounts?
No, we've bought a few more, and now we're producing more spirit. It allows us to fill more different cask types that have worked particularly well. But we always have to remember that the core expressions are bourbon and sherry, and in the next, certainly in the last couple of years, and in the next couple of years, we will be filling mainly bourbon and sherry, just so that we've got enough supply moving forward for Machir Bay, Sannig, and Loch.
But we already got those experimental casks in the warehouse maturing away, so it will always be something that we will drip feed out there on an annual basis. But one of the questions that came in was, would you consider doing either a Loch Gorm or a Saneg at cask strength?
Yeah,
as a, like we do the Machir Bay cask strength. I mean, we'd love to be able to do all the things that people request, but I suppose the one that does come up the most is a Loch Gorm or a Saneg at cask strength, limited fashion.
I mean, I think everybody knows my view on that is that I'd sell everything at cask strength if I could, but to share enough of it around, we reduce it. And I think everybody will know that, when you compare Machir Bay cask strength, which we released, I don't know, in November of this year, it had to be postponed from the previous year. When you compare that beside the 46%, there's no difference in the vatting. I think everybody who would plump for the cask strength, because you've got everything in the glass and you reduce it to your individual taste by adding water. But it is something that we will do a bit more of when we're able to. And so we've been pressed pretty hard about a Saneg cask strength. I'm resisting that at the moment. And we'll see where we go. But look, I'm of a great believer in cask strength whiskies, and I've always said that I want to have a regular core expression at cask strength at some point. I'm not going to say when that is, but something that I'm very keen to do moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's something that we've looked at for a number of years now, and it's something that crops up a lot. And I suppose we use the single casks, the shop exclusives, small batches that we do at a slightly higher ABV in the late 40s, early 50s. Those are the sort of things that we're able to do at the moment, but we don't want to overstretch ourselves too much and use too many of the casks in the warehouse at the moment.
But I'm just touching on a subject that everybody likes to talk about. We keep a lid on it. I don't
know what he's going to say now.
Sustainability is on everybody's lips, and some talk about it a lot more than others. I tend to just keep quiet about it, but we do have a program quite seriously. Everybody's looking at it in ways that they can run the distillery and put out products that are more sustainable. Yeah. So we've put a load of solar panels on our warehouses and around the distillery. We're now getting a new bottle this year, which is much lighter in weight, which some people will be delighted with. Because it's 860 grams, and we're going to be about 200 grams lighter with the new bottle. Same shape, same design. Don't panic. But just being aware of glass weight and reducing that, which I think is key and important. And some markets are insisting on it anyway. So no stain on our wooden top, and we've now gone away from tin capsules to polylaminate capsules. These are all things, and of course the big debate is when we drop out with gift cartons, but we're sticking with gift cartons at the moment, and we'll see that where that leads us. But clearly, and how we run the distillery is also key in terms of the fuel, and it's a little bit more challenging on an island. What you can get here in terms of more sustainable fuel. But look, we're looking at all these different things like everybody else is, and we're moving towards that reasonably quickly, and we're doing what we can to become more sustainable. But we're driven by the industry as a whole. We're very lucky to have the SWA behind us to feed us all the information and what we should be moving towards. And so we as a company are definitely moving in that direction.
Well, I think it's going to be, the solar panels that we have put up on the new warehouses, run the electricity for those warehouses now, which is brilliant. I think that the way the technology has changed over the years has meant that it's, up on island where we don't always get the perceived sunlight, but now it's just hours of daylight. They work remarkably well. So having them on the new warehousing and potentially in other buildings.
Now Kathy's agreed that they'll be on the visitor centre, which she was opposed to. She's now been persuaded that that'll be very good news for the company. So we'll be moving towards that in the new year. We put them on buildings around the distillery very recently, and then we'll see where we go in the near future.
No, I think it's important to do, but the bottle is the big one for next year when that comes in.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be coming. We won't be launching it until later in the year, probably around September time, I would imagine, when we'll be launching it. So I do remember when I was doing a tasting tour in Germany, and we got locked out of the car we were in, but luckily the old bottle of Kilchoman smashed the window. So we got in. So
good advert, that.
Yeah, it was
good advert for the old bottle.
The old bottle. Very good for breaking into your car.
Always used for smashing windows. But no, it is, there's a lot of, it's amazing now when you start talking about the changes that are not only happening in the last few years, but in the coming years, how there's a lot going on.
Yeah, no,
a lot going on at the moment, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
We're thankful for all you Kilchoman fans out there that are allowing us to keep on growing, which is remarkable. The final whiskey that we're going to taste this evening is the club release. So we do an annual release exclusively for the club. So the Kilchoman Club was something we started a number of years ago, and it various different benefits that come with it. But one of the main ones is the opportunity to buy a limited release. Over the years, the club has grown rapidly, and it's meant that the release has sort of we do it as it sells relatively quickly, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. But this year, what we did is a Masala finish, which was 8 years in bourbons, and then finished for about 15 months in the Masala. And with the club, I suppose it gives you a chance to sort of give them a sample of something that's maturing away in the warehouse that might not have been seen before.
I think it's trying to showcase something that maybe not been released before, a sneak preview for club members, and the opportunity. I know that it does sell out relatively quickly. Obviously, you get information about limited releases that are coming out, so you get pre-warning of those. And if you come to the distillery, I believe there's discounts
on tools on branded goods
and branded and whiskey. So I mean, it's remarkable how far it's going. I'm going to ask you how many members.
I just knew you were going to ask me that, and I don't know.
No,
I don't know that.
Doesn't know.
Hopefully, I'm going to get a text in a second.
Going to tell you, but so this Masala is for those probably aware, it's a fortified wine from Sicily. So it's sort of this full, rich, sweet, white fortified wine, and it's given a layer of complexity just for those 15 months. It's finished in that it's remarkable in terms of its colour, and its nose and its palate is exceptionally sort of full and round and with nutty, I would say.
Because I know previously we did a Sauterne. So how were you looking at the Marsala to behave in a completely different way because of where it's?
Yeah. I mean, it was never going to behave like Sauterne, sweet white wine from Bordeaux. That was more difficult to work with because the alcohol strength is much lower. Marsala is higher alcohol strength, so you've got a bit more to work with, I believe, and the balance and the structure is easier to work with than Sauterne, which has its more ups and downs in maturation terms.
Right, how many do you think are in the club?
I don't know, about 15,000.
You can double that, 30,000 members.
30,000
30,000 members in the club.
Yeah.
We would love to be able to do a release of 30,000 bottles, but
that'd be a bit difficult.
That might be quite tricky. So that's remarkable. It just shows how much that's grown over the years.
What's the strength of this?
That is 53.
53%.
So I get a little bit more spice on that compared to the sweetness that I got off the Calvados.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think the spice is coming through, sort of spicy richness is coming through. But it's if truth be known, we may have not forgotten about this, but it was at its peak, and we needed to get on and release it. Because I think if we'd left it longer, if we'd left it for another 6 months, it would have been, as I would describe, overcooked.
So when it comes to for people what. So when it comes to these experimental casks you got in the warehouse, is it a case of you have a rough idea in your mind? Right, okay, we'll leave that for 6 months. We'll leave that for 10 months, or is it something that you have to taste or have to check to see how they evolve? And
well,
change?
with ones that we've used before and then we've bought more of them, we know roughly how they work. The Marsala, we'd never bought them before. We've and used them for finishing because I thought it would work better for finishing than full maturation. And Robin, who has an encyclopedic knowledge of every single cask,
it is scary.
In terms of what we got maturing, reminded me we had the Marsala and shouldn't we be trying it? And I thought, oh Christ, yes, we should have done. Because I normally give those ones that I haven't had before maybe 8 months, and then we go and try taste them. I always believe that something needs a minimum of 6 to 8 months, and then you see how it develops over the next sort of 5 or 6 months. But maybe the Marsala next time round, probably a year would be sufficient. This is 15 months.
But I suppose when you're doing a finish like this, you know, like the Calvados, you want that the other cask variety to shine, to play a major role in it as well. It's juggling.
Yeah, it's just look. Some people will say, "Look, this is fantastic." Other people might say it's a bit overdone. I think it's about right. I love the characteristics that are coming through, the spice and the nutty character, and the color is very different. The nose is completely different from any of the ones you're trying to know. It has a sort of full richness to it. You know, I love working with these cask types. We'll definitely buy more Marsala casks. Hopefully we can get them from the same source so that they're pretty consistent in character.
There's a question that I slipped through. So would the dream be in the future to be able to grow all your barley at the farm or on Isla, malt it yourself and be in control of it? I know that it's very, you know, being on the farm and having control of the process, the whole process is amazing. But would the dream in 10 to 20 years time to well, if you could get more land?
When I came up with the idea of building a distillery, it was to grow our own barley, do the whole production process and put out our own whiskey that came from our own fields. But that was never a reality. It was never possible as we developed the project. And yes, it would be great to grow more of our own barley. Yeah. And if we have the opportunity of being able to do that, we will. But I'd like to be in complete control. So we need to be owning the fields that we grow barley in, and not be subcontracting to other people to grow it for us. I just feel that the single malt is something that I believe strongly in. So I want to be able to be in complete control of every aspect, from deciding when we plough and what seed variety we're going to grow, right the way through. So at the moment, we're looking to just bring more of our own fields into production, and we'll see where it takes us in the future and what lies ahead. But we'll never be in a position that we'll be growing everything that we need for production.
But I suppose that being able to controlling every part of the process on the farm is a complete luxury that other distilleries don't have, as far as being able to decide the barley varieties that we blow. And I know that you now, with Robin, enjoy the experimental side of the different barley varieties that we can now distill separately, fill into casks separately, so that we can in the future give you 100% Isla, you know, different expressions in different barley varieties.
I mean, we have trialed different varieties in the same field. We've always had one key, main barley variety we use, and then we've always had experimental 10 acres or 15, 20 acres of something else. And then we cast them separately, and hopefully at some point down the line we can do releases showcasing different barley varieties, because I do believe the variety of barley plays a part. And the big but is, you know, through the process, put it into a cask, leave it for 10, 15 years, and those differences narrow right down. Yeah. There you go.
There we go. That's me told.
Yeah.
Just a reminder that anyone, if we haven't answered your questions, that you can leave them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you. And anyone who's asked questions on YouTube not been answered, they can email Catherine, who will put her email address in the comments, and she'll get back to you when she's back at work. She's tuning in tonight while she's on holiday.
Catherine, very kindly, she looks after all our social media. But she's now allowed out and about, and travels to various markets. It's responsible for various markets around the world. So hopefully those are tuning in, I can't remember exactly which. South America is one,
South
but there's
America, Spain,
other
Hungary.
markets that Catherine looks after, and she'll be out and about around the markets. And was in America, in California in September, I believe. So she's doing a bit more traveling. And then Chloe Wood has also joined us in May.
Yeah.
Was it May?
Yeah, she joined just before the
and
finish.
previously worked for Brewer Gladys, so it was great to have Chloe join us. And of course, Chloe's an Isla girl. Andrew, her dad, has been doing a huge amount of work at the distillery. So all the improvements around the distillery are down to Andrew and his men. Any warehouse that needs putting in, he does all the groundworks and has been working pretty much flat out for the last 5, 6, 7 years. So when you see the distillery, you'll know that Andrew, Chloe's dad, has had a lot to do with that, and we're hugely grateful for what he does.
You hope he's watching. You hope he's watching, so that's a compliment.
Yeah, that's and they give me a New Year's Eve present.
Yeah, get you a present. But no, if we haven't any questions, I mean, it's important that we try and answer as many of these questions as we can. It's always slightly tricky, but it's if you do think of anything, just let us know. You got anything that you'd like to?
No, look, all I'd like to say is thanks very much for your support, buying bottles of Kilchoman. We are amazed with how much people have enjoyed Kilchoman around the world. I never imagined we'd be in this place. And we look forward to welcoming you either to the distillery or visiting you now that we can get out and about around the world. And the sales team are now out and about quite a lot and will be more and more in the future, next year, definitely. And we'll hopefully meet up with you wherever you are. But look, thanks very much for your support in 2022. And we look forward to 2023. And I'd just like to wish everybody a very, very happy New Year, Hogmanay, as we say in Scotland. And we look forward to 2023. So, Swaje.
Well, we're going to hope that Catherine